I'm going to start by sharing my screen. I think just for the sake of the discussion kickoff, if you guys can go ahead and mute, just in case you have backgrounds like Jody might have a farmer come through.
Oh yeah, how do I do? Okay.
A little mute. That'll be helpful just for background noise. And of course, if we want to, as we're doing the discussion, unmute as you want to speak. And really in the chat, there's also a raise your hand. And I know Laura's we kind of planned it if I chose the book, so I would run the discussion and Laura would be the moderator as far as chat questions go. So feel free to put some chat in there. But for now, I'm just going to share my screen and do some housekeeping. Maybe I'm going to make this larger. So can everybody see the screen?
I can.
Okay, great. So Laura and I, we met on LinkedIn. We think LinkedIn is amazing as long as you're not selling in the messaging. We don't love that, but we do tend to find really great people on LinkedIn. So it's been a couple years now that we've known each other and we've done some joint work together, and our styles just fit, and we talked about doing a group together that was around reading and just getting more conversations going with other leaders. I think it's just, we've had so much fun with it. We wanted to share that same experience with more people. And then we came upon this idea around this 20 and 20 book. So for our agenda, we're going to do some quick intros, and then we're going to follow it with a round robin. And for those of you that haven't done round robin, we're going to give you the agenda. And we heard a couple people haven't read the books. Do not worry about that. We really will have the people that haven't read go last so they can kind of see through somebody else's perspective what other people have talked about the book and if it's motivated them to read it, or if they've had some quick action items based on someone else's share. And that again is when we'll do some open comments. I did want to introduce myself as this is not my kitchen. I'm actually coming to you from Aruba. And so graciously, Laura made sure she signed in case I have any technical issues. The Wi-Fi is pretty good here, but I've also gotten frozen on a few calls. So if that happens, Laura will jump in and take over for me. So don't panic there, and you guys can make fun of my frozen image on the screen. So I'm gonna switch us up here. So the ground rules, we are going to record this and it's going to get posted to YouTube, and then we're going to go ahead and share it with our communities on Facebook and LinkedIn. We are recording, so watch your P's and Q's. The other thing I will say on that, this is a closed group. If there's something that happens that came up that you had a second thought about afterwards, reach out to Laura and I. We can do some really quick editing on the video if something came up that's not comfortable for you. We want you to have fun with this, but also be like, that might have not been something that I would want posted on LinkedIn or Facebook. So if you have that feeling, we're all friends here, so make sure you let us know that. And everyone is entitled to their opinions. We did not pick any political books, so that's a good start for us as far as the wrong type of conversation. But we do want to leave some room. I mean, Laura and I are picking these books, and if somebody really doesn't like the book, we want to hear why, and maybe why it wouldn't work for you in your particular situation, because it helps Laura and I be better coaches. A lot of times when we read content, we apply it to the larger whole. And if we have somebody that can give us some really good feedback on why this might not work for them or their team, I think it's helpful information. And so bring it all, and we'll keep working through that and hopefully have some good discussions around it. And most of all, have fun. Laura and I have done a lot of work together, and if we're not laughing at ourselves or saying, oh my gosh, did I just say that during our recordings or our calls or our workshops together, I mean, we want to have fun. So feel like you can just, if you're having a great day, bring it. And if you're just having a day where you want to be quiet, just show up in any way that you want. So our round robin, we did post these. I also wanted to mention in the event in all of the scheduled events, if you accept them, in the detailed section is always going to be where the Zoom is posted for you to be able to find it easily. It's just not really obvious when you look at the details. You want to look into those and the Zoom will be posted. Our round robin questions, we just want to keep it simple. And if we have 20 people on the call, we'll probably structure that day a little bit differently. But I'll get Laura to give us a count and see, I think in an hour, if I get over this introduction, we can get right at it. Round robin questions are how helpful and, for example, relevance to your audience, ability for you to put into action, compared to similar books. Maybe this isn't the book for everybody, but it reminded you of a book that you want to share with a group. Favorite quote or point made, and what did you least like about it? And a general thumbs up. We'll do Siskel and Ebert, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of format. And then we wanted to highlight the next book that Laura chose, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that is going to be on February 27th at noon. So they're pretty consistently the last Thursday of the month. And the events are all posted. So if you want to accept those to get on your calendar, please feel free to do that. I think I went through all the slides. Laura, can you think of anything I might have missed?
I just want to reiterate that we picked the 12 books based on ones we'd already read, because when we were discussing this concept, it was, you know, how many books that we read, and then they have all these great ideas and we fly through them and don't bother to stop and collect those thoughts and put them into action. Or, you know, I take a million notes, especially in my online library, and then they go back to the library and I never read them again to see like what those nuggets of wisdom were to pull out. So it was kind of like, let's just read them again so we can actually engage it. And then we wanted to do thumbs up, thumbs down, so that at the end of this year, we pull this into next year and we pick the 80 or 20% of the ones that we really, really like, and then pull in a new set to go along with that, so that we can be doubling down on the really good books and then pulling in some new information. So there's a method to our little madness here. And we're hoping that you guys jump in and stick with us, not just for now, but we kind of plan on doing this for a long time. So not to freak anybody out, but always learning, always reading. So always look, I have a list like 100 books long that I'm ready to dive into, but I want to really, instead of reading 100 books and not taking it in, I would rather read 20 books and really absorb them and put it into action. So that's kind of where it all came from. So I'd like to do some introductions. There's some people on the call, I don't know who you are, which is awesome. So we have to unmute now. Lisa, how do you want to go? Do you want to be the ringleader for calling people out?
Sure, and I think we'll start with the group of 3. They look like a fun group. So Kim, do you mind unmuting and just, you can tell us as much or as little as you'd like, but kind of how you found the group and where you're located.
Yeah, so we're with the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County. So we're in Tampa, Florida, and we know Laura. She used to work with us, and so she's a good friend of mine, of all of ours, and we just love supporting her in everything that she does. So when she invited us,
you guys are here.
when she invited us to do this, we're affectionately calling it the Leadership Book Club.
I love it.
So we're just happy to be participants. I work in the Wetlands Division.
I'm Christina. I work in the Wetlands Division. Laura's actually my sister.
Yes.
And I'm Chris. I work in the Water Division, and Laura used to be my supervisor, and she still kind of is in a way. She's definitely a mentor. So
you are all my family.
I think that was a great first introduction, because I think as leaders we kind of also move and forget our old network, and it's nice when our network of other leaders becomes a family. So I think that's great. Welcome to the group. How about Casey? Did you want to go ahead and just introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. I am one of Laura's coachees, so she's been working with me. I just moved to the Tampa Bay area from Minneapolis, and before that California, and then Tennessee. So I've been hopping around, and Laura's been helping to get me on track. And I think she kind of recommended this book club for my partner, who is a leader at Johnson & Johnson, and he's not much of a reader, so I kind of took up the gauntlet, and I've been using it kind of in my job search process. So
That's so awesome. So you should meet Kim, Christina, and Chris.
yeah,
I met you already. Oh.
Yeah.
I was just telling Kim, I was like, I think that's the Casey who I talked
I know.
to.
I honestly, I was like, Casey Tree, I don't know who that is. So
I just realized that was me, and I don't know why it's Casey Tree, but Casey Sullivan. Yeah.
Welcome. Glad you made it.
Yeah, thank you.
How about you, Marissa? Did you want to go ahead and give a little introduction?
Sure. My name is Marissa. I am living in Syracuse, New York. So whoever said it was cold in Florida, come see what it's like up here. I think when I took my daughter to school today, it was like 15 degrees. So I met Laura through MACNY. I'm a part-time employee at MACNY. Laura, I don't know if we've ever met in person.
I don't think so.
I think, your face is familiar, I think, from LinkedIn and things like that, but I know we've emailed before, and so I really appreciated the invite on LinkedIn because I love to read. I am a co-host of a podcast that is focused on professional and personal growth. So we talk a lot about different books there. I was actually able to talk about the books that we're talking about today on the podcast, and yeah, I'm really excited to be doing this. And like you, Laura, I also get a lot of things from the library and have fallen victim to the automatic take back.
Right? Well, awesome. I'm glad you're here. I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, and Marissa, we'd love you to share in that group. I'm not sure how that would work. If we can figure, is there a group versus an event calendar? We'd love you to share your podcast. Yeah,
I can share. I mean, we have about 137 episodes.
Oh my God.
Well, send me
we've been at it for a while.
That's awesome. Send me the link and we'll put it in the description for this.
Great, I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Marissa. Hey, Jody, want to go ahead from the farm?
Sure, from the farm, upstate New York. It is freezing. It's like 5 degrees. So I have all my layers on, but the sun is shining. I came to this by way of Lisa. I met Lisa this past fall when she was at an event at the Wise Business Center in Syracuse, and we kind of clicked, and working with her now on some other business things. So I am an avid learner, and I like I love these books actually. So when you're like 20 books, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in. See what you got, that I haven't heard of yet. So it's been fun.
That's great. Thanks, Jody. And I think that might be it. Is there anybody else on the call? I think we're good, Laura.
Yep, I don't see anybody else joining in. So, I did think that I probably should have included in this presentation at least a screenshot or something of the book so that, because we've all seen it, but there you go. I knew you'd be ready. Kim too. Fantastic. There you go. Just was thinking once it's up on YouTube, it would be nice to have the picture of it. So now we're good to go.
Great. So I will go ahead and kick off this discussion since I have the book. Again, the book is Organize Tomorrow Today, 8 Ways to Retrain Your Mind to Optimize Performance at Work and in Life by Dr. Jason Selk and Tom Bartow with Matthew Rudy. And so just for me, I'm walking into this as somebody who has read this book about 4 times. So I have a totally different perspective on this book.
Lisa, would you start with telling us, you might already been going to, but why you picked it?
Yes, so I am a capacity coach and consultant. So I help people in business or personally create more capacity for themselves. So it's usually around people or process, but I also know it's around time management. There's a ton of time management stuff and mental toughness. And so for this book in particular, what I loved was that they kind of broke this down into a simple way. So when I teach people time management, I start at the basics, like ground zero with people. And when they get good at this, this is when I give them this book. So as soon as they've got to a level, and I usually only use it with kind of those really successful people that don't work against their time management. So it's when you get in the zone and you want to kind of build. So I do love that this book seems like a book for leaders, because I think you have some of that mental toughness when you step into leadership roles. So this book for me, I enjoy it. I reread it again in the airport because I knew it was coming up, and it really solidified to me some of the conversations that Laura and I have had around, gosh, you read the book, you do the thing for 30 days, and then you move on to the next book and do something else for 30 days. Having reread this on an annual basis has been really helpful. Every time I read it, I kind of pluck something new out of it. So I just thought I would share a couple ideas. I'm going to keep mine a little bit short, and we can kind of return to it because I have read this book so much. But I just wanted to point out what I really love is there's 8 ways, and one of the points in the book that I struggle with is saturating people with information paralyzes them. I am a content queen. I give people way too much information, and I love that Laura and I were talking about how this book is kind of really simple, and it does have things at the end of the chapters that we can really pick one and practice it. So I really like helping people step in. I like to teach and then help them practice. So for me, this is an excellent book for successful leaders to have something to practice over a year. I just wanted to point out the 8 ways are actually in the introduction on page 22, if that's helpful for the discussion today. And I'll just start with sharing a couple more comments. So I love that this book to me feels like an experimental mindset. It's a growth mindset book. So they really emphasize that even as leaders, we're always learning and we're always in an effort to improve. I love that we give leaders permission to do that, because I think sometimes we get to a level where we expect perfectionism from our leaders. So if we have that language where, hey, I might not get this right, to our teams and other people around us, I think that's a really powerful tool for us to keep in mind. I really appreciated that. Again, is not like a fundamental thing, but I'm speaking from the things I plucked after rereading the 4 times. One of the things that I coach people on a lot is meeting overload. So if there's no action, you didn't need the meeting is an excellent quote for leaders. For me, I kind of help people with capacity, but I also do a lot of sales coaching, which sounds terrible, but it's really enjoyable when you have awesome people that have great things to sell and are relationship based. So I do a lot of that coaching, and I get them not to have the same first meeting by just popping in a call to action to every meeting. So when you are meeting with somebody with sales or without sales, to have that little call to action keeps that relationship moving forward, which I think people on the other end, we think they just want to have coffee with us. They don't, they're busy too. So I think just pointing out that if there's no action, don't have the meeting. Like, have that agenda set in your mind and have one powerful little bit of action that you collaborate with clients or your team. Mental rehearsal for me is huge. So I teach people with talking points in mind, and then they mentally rehearse. So the 3 times a day mental rehearsal, I think, might be a little bit much for some things, but if you have a tough conversation coming up, even rehearsing with a friend, I'm like, give me the objections, or, you know, this is a tough conversation I might want to have with my husband. I'm going to role play it with my best friend. And I think just saying things out loud, or that mental rehearsal, is just a really powerful tool. And then I will kind of wind my conversation down with, don't hammer the negative, reinforce the positive. I think that celebration, Jody and I were talking about how nice it would be to have a celebration of, you know, make sure there's pause for celebration. And a lot of my clients, I make them have celebration journals. Like, they'll call me and be like, this thing went amazing. I'm like, I need you to write it down in 3 to 5 sentences in that journal we talked about, because things aren't always going to go well. So when our brain kind of goes to the negatives, to have that place where you can go, I should probably look at that journal about all the great things I did over the last 6 months, is just a really helpful tool. So I would say those were my 5. Obviously, I'm going to give this book a thumbs up. I picked it. It would be pointless. But I would kind of wrap up my discussion with that, as far as somebody who finds the power of reading the book over and over again on an annual basis. How's that, Laura?
That was good. I like your take on them and what you do with your clients.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we wanted to hear from everyone. Everybody's team's going to look a little different and work's going to look different. And so sharing stories about either how you've used the book with your team or how you might think about using the book with your team, I think is really helpful. As far as order, Laura, do we want to have some other people jump in and then you go last, or do you think you should go next?
No, I think let some other people talk so they don't fall asleep on us.
Okay, good. I hate talking after. I feel in Aruba, I feel like so far away from all of you.
Remind us again, where are you in Aruba?
It's not 15 degrees. I'm from upstate New York, Marissa, so I feel the pain. There's a lot of pain there. Is there anybody that wanted to go next?
Oh, we have another person joining. So Patrick is joining us. He's another person that I coached. So let's see. Patrick, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Hey.
We were just starting the book discussion, but we did already introduce ourselves. Do you want to just introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Patrick. I've read this book.
That's awesome.
If you look in
like Patrick.
If you look in the chat, there should be the download that has the questions if you didn't see it before in the LinkedIn group. And we were just moving on to, who did you say was next, Lisa, to talk about their book?
I had somebody on your Florida team volunteer, but I didn't catch who. Oh, somebody's waving.
All right, Christina, take it away.
I read the first chapter, and the one thing that I can say that I took away was the fact that the very short list with the one must do for the day was helpful. I tried it for a week and it worked out pretty good. I had, even in that week, there was a day where I was like, doggone it, I still didn't get to the must do for the day. So it's difficult. I find that it's hard to try and make sure you get all of the things that are not must do's, but have to be done because of the scope of what's required of you. You can't tell someone, nope, I'm not going to answer any of your questions today. I'm only going to do the things that I need to do because that's part of the job. I would say, from your perspective and from Lisa's perspective, with you guys reading this and knowing all of the things that they talk about, what's realistic? You have those days where you're never going to get to the things that you need to do. And no matter how you try and organize, it just doesn't happen on a daily basis. How do you move yourself so that you get closer to being able to organize yourself the day before? Because I can say it does add a little bit of clarity when you know this is what I need to focus on tomorrow, and I already have it set in mind. So that would be my one thing just from reading the first chapter that I took away, that I said, okay, if I didn't do anything else, I would be okay with doing this one thing out of the book. And I could see applying it not only in work, but in personal life. So I like the book. I would give it a thumbs up based on chapter 1.
Hey, if you get something out of it in one chapter, that's great. Lisa, I can see you want to talk to that. I have a quick comment, but
I think that's what's, I think you picked up the essence of why we choose books like that, like this, is that sometimes Laura and I talked about like just making things simple. Sometimes it's one chapter at a time and it does take practice. I would say from a time management comment on that, I always put off the important thing throughout the day. I always put other people's stuff first. That's just my natural way, not being like, but I find that if I actually schedule in specific time, I estimate how long that task takes, and I schedule specific time in my calendar for the next day. Like I have to say, I'm going to do this thing at 10 o'clock, or I always shove it down. Like it always comes last. So I do it pretty early in the day, and I estimate specific times, and I schedule it in, and I let people know, hey, I'm working on this thing, but I'm available at 11:30. It gives me permission in my mind to just get focused on that one important thing. I'm not sure if that was helpful, but for me, it's finding the little strategy when you notice the thing gets pushed out.
Yeah. And I will say a combination of that. What I've been doing, because I keep putting the big things off too, because I purposefully do all my, like, relationships are number one for me. So there are people out there with productivity who will say, you know, don't check your emails or don't do whatever. I never let anyone go 24 hours without hearing from me if they want a response, you know, and so they always come first, and they never, it's like it should be fast, but you know, you need to research something, especially you guys at EPC, you've got to, you know, get some paperwork together before you can send it to them. And so a quick email never is a quick email. And then so it's lunchtime by the time I've even finished communicating people with, but that's half of work is communication. But then that means the PowerPoint I need to make for the presentation that I'm giving next week hasn't been started. So that's my must do, right? But is it really a must do? Like getting back to people to me is a must do. If I keep putting it off, eventually it becomes a must do tomorrow, which you don't want if it's something that's going to take you weeks. But what I've been doing lately is just chunking it out. So instead of saying, I need to write this presentation, or that's, you know, my big thing that I have to do, it's I need to write the outline for the presentation. And that will take me 15 minutes. And then the next day is create the bones for the presentation in PowerPoint, you know, and the next day after that is put in the pictures. And so then something that is this big beast of a challenge to get done that's hanging out here and I keep moving off to the next day, I'm biting it off in little pieces. And then I'm staying like motivated and checked in with it too, because when you put it off for too long and you come back to it, it's like, I did all this. Sometimes I go back to something and I'm like, oh, I already did the outline and the pictures. And then I'm, you know, starting over because I put it off for too long and I completely forgot what I did. So that's how I do that.
Maybe we should do a time management 101 too. Offshoot. I love time management. I think it's the best tool for relieving anxiety ever. So we'll have future projects together, I'm sure. Did you have any other questions about that?
I think that helps. From my perspective, I like what you're saying about the Outlook calendar, and folks will look at my Outlook calendar and say, what is going on here? Because I do block off time. What I find is even when you block it off and you say no meetings are to be scheduled, the rest of the folks who don't use Outlook or someone's not using that tool set, they'll schedule it right over it. And it is, you know, it's priority. It becomes priority based on seniority. And what is, because we work in the public sector, then if it's a customer, then it has to come first before whatever else we have. So I think that maybe trying to take your idea and Laura's, scheduling smaller blocks, because I will try and schedule big blocks of time and just say, I want to get all my stuff done here. So scheduling smaller blocks where maybe some other things can fit in there, the combination of the two might be a good idea.
And I would suggest wait until you read chapter 3. Maximize time. You're going to love it. Because it does help create some space in your calendar too. I think when space comes in, we forget about the important thing and we might get a little distracted in other things. So I think that chapter 3 might really help you as well.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's hear from someone else.
Is there anybody else that wants to go next?
I'll go. Casey.
Oh, is it Casey?
Yeah. I haven't read a lot of leadership books, but I liked this one. Is kind of like structured and really gave you specific things to work on and like action items. I think I connected with I think it's chapter 6, the learn how to talk with yourself and doing the mental workout, because I can definitely like focus on the negative or what I didn't get done that day. And that was definitely true. My previous job, just kind of feeling like, oh, I didn't get this done. Like somebody was counting on this in order to move forward. And I probably thought it was a bigger deal than they did in reality, because everyone was so like all over the place and busy. But I think focusing first on what you did well, and then trying to think about how to move things forward is a more productive way of like thinking about your day and your productivity in general.
Yeah, that's great. I would, does anybody have a comment on kind of that this is a book that comes from kind of a sports background? Did anyone connect to that introduction with it's John Wooden and Jason and Tom being kind of people that were taught by a coach in sports as opposed to leadership? Jody?
Yeah, so it actually kind of made me laugh, but you know, I have been very consistent in exercise. It's something that I do. It clears my head. It starts my day. It's my time, and it happens every morning at 5 o'clock. No questions asked. And it was like, oh, wait, I do that. I've been doing that for very consistently for a long time, and I'm not using the same principles in other areas. So it's kind of like, for me, it was kind of just like, hello, do the same thing somewhere else. And, you know, I'm not crazy. I spend a half an hour doing what I do. And I was like, well, if I just did a half an hour, like with the communication thing, I'm in sales, and you have to, you know, you want to reach back to people in a timely fashion. And you know, I do it throughout the day. I started tracking it actually just to see. And I'm like, oh my God. But then I really took some time and said, okay, you know, my morning routine is, you know, now the first hour of my workday is only that. I don't answer the phone. I don't work on anything else. And I've broken that down into, I'm not sure which chapter it was. I think it was the first one, you know, the 3-1, the most important thing. All right. So for clients in that hour, who's the most important person I have to get back to then? You know, and then the other thing on the other end of it was to keep track and to celebrate the work that you've done. So that one of the things I did was I keep track of it, just like I did with my exercise. Look, when I first started wanting to do it consistently, I was like, oh, look, I made it a week. Oh, look, I made it 2. So, you know, I'm keeping track, and there's a whole spreadsheet and a whole, you know, but for me, it's been like, oh, look, I am doing the most important things, and it's moving things fast. And it's very way faster.
That's awesome. I actually took a similar thing away from the book because I started, you know, I just said I do my email and my return calls and stuff to people first thing in the morning, and I call it on my to-do list my P2P, so it's my people to people tasks. And then, so now I haven't started it yet, but my plan is to start a B2B. So after the people to people is my sales and business to business, and then I'll move into work, which I know is harder for you guys in your EPC because you have to do, like Christina was saying, other people's priorities have to fit in there too. But I have, like you said, Jody, been doing kind of a similar thing.
Well, I actually had to check with Lisa. I was like, okay, because I work on a lot of different projects, and I'm like 3-1, like the 3 most important, one thing. And I do that for every project. And I did, I just started, so I picked 4 things that I have to work on every day. And there's one thing in each category that has to get done. Like, it's very satisfying for me to check off that one thing. I don't know why that works, but it's working.
That's great.
Casey, I'm not sure that we let you finish, like I'm not sure I let you finish all of your thoughts. I just wanted to check in with you. Did you have anything else to share?
Oh no, I'm done. I like the organize tomorrow today method too, and I've been using that kind of the way that Laura described, breaking things down into chunks, and just like a little bit of progress is better than not doing anything at all. So
great.
we can spend 15 minutes on something. It's great.
Jody, did you want to go ahead and share now since you kind of hopped in there? Was there anything else you wanted to?
No, I think the two biggest things that I got out were, kind of breaking it down. What is the most important thing that has to happen, and actually just allowing yourself time to do that, putting it on the calendar. That's kind of the biggest thing, because we do get stretched and the phone rings and somebody emails and they need us now. And I'm like, okay, you know what? Everybody, I'm not answering the phone until 9 o'clock. If you can't get a hold of me, that's what I'm doing.
How's it going over with your team? Are they adjusting to that?
Yes. Have noticed. And if I'm working on it and I see it comes through or somebody shoots me a text, I'll be like, I'll get back to you at 9. And then I do. And that's enough to they know that I saw them, and and I say, unless it's an emergency, and if it's an emergency, but nothing's really that urgent. Can wait.
True. I'm like, unless you're a doctor or a fireman, we have to stop working at this pace where it's emergency based, because we don't do our best thinking then.
Not at all. No, but really, I've been doing the morning routine of that, blocking that out. And then I have the evening routine where I'm setting up those most important things in the evening and blocking that out for the day. And taking 5 minutes to say, what did I do well? And that takes it right off my brain for the night. And I'm like, oh, yay. So, and then when I start in the morning, it's already written and I don't have to rethink what I'm supposed to be working on. I just go, oh, I'm good. So it's been so far so good.
So I'm assuming you like the thumbs up.
I would thumbs up it, yeah.
Thanks, Jody. So we have Patrick and Marissa. Did either of you have some comments? It looks like Marissa's off mute.
Yeah, I can talk. So I will say thumbs up for sure. It's a little bit hard for me to say how this fits with my team, because I'm in a unique situation. I have two teams. I'm a full-time mom, and I work from home part-time for an organization that I used to work at full-time. So I've had to work really hard to set some of those boundaries with my team at MASME, because they're used to having me in the office full time, and it's a little bit different now. So the book has kind of helped me set the two apart, and I really, really liked the principles of okay, these are the top 3 things, but not just doing that. That's not new to me. But setting the time. So I'm going to do this by 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever. And so that has been really, really useful for me as a way to kind of unapologetically prioritize what really needs to get done. And thinking about, those, I can't remember what they call it in the book, but those blocks of time, that minimum block of time that if you come upon that number of minutes, you can do something to move yourself forward. And for me, that's really important, because it's rare for me to have many hours to sit down and do something, because it's between dropping my daughter off at school and picking my daughter up at school. Or right now, my little one is napping, so I have that window to accomplish things. So I really am able to use those small periods of time to make big progress. And it was a good reminder too, to not fall to the tyranny of the urgent, and to remember that there's a difference between something that is urgent and something that is truly important. And so lining up your goals and your priorities appropriately with those things, and using this method, I feel like it's a really magic. It's that's how you can get stuff done.
Well, we'd like to hear magic.
Yeah.
And the open space, did you pick a specific amount of time that's your open space, or are you just recognizing open space?
I think right now for me, it's probably somewhere around 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I'm also recognizing where those pockets of time are. So I had to drop something off at my daughter's school last week prior to the end of the day. And I was like, okay, so while this is kind of inconvenient for me, this will give me 20 extra minutes of time. What can I do with those 20 minutes? And so I was like, okay, I can either read another book that I'm reading, or it ended up being a beautiful day. So I was like, okay, the baby and I will walk, and that'll be like my exercise. So we power walked around the school parking lot 100 times until the bell rang. And I was able to use that time effectively for some aerobic activity and get some vitamin D on my face.
Yeah, that is, I think there's a huge struggle. I work from home as well. And I know Jody does at least part-time when she's not at the farm. And most of my sales coaching is with advisors that don't have structure. And we talk about blocking off like 45 minutes of work time and then what you would do with the 15. So I've always kind of backed into that, but they've really appreciated what you're talking about, the walk. I'm like, almost don't even need you to do something. If you really work for 45 minutes intensely, I'm good if you want a kid. A lot of them are fathers that have, they get their kids off the bus and things like that. I'm like, go kiss Oliver on the forehead 5 of the minutes and then do some breathing exercise and then get back at it. And he said for him, he was always kind of feeling bad that he kind of had to push the kids away to work. And he's like, I get down on the floor with them now for 10 minutes and play with them. Like that is what he's chosen to do with his 10 minutes. And he said, I'm so much more productive because I'm not also having guilt, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Too.
That's great. I kind of incorporated something similar too. So I have a very structured to-do list that has everything written down. So like Jody said, I'm ready to go in the morning. If I'm in a fog, I just go follow number 1. So my callbacks are in Roman numerals. So I just start with those for my P2P. And then I work into the numbers, which go into the work. And then now what I added from the book was letters. And the letters are the things I can do for when I have 20 minutes or less. Oh, so if I can't work on a number, then I go down to the letters. Marissa, was that all you wanted to say? I want to make sure we have time for Patrick to chime in too.
Yeah. Yes. Yep, that's it. Thank you.
You were a thumbs up, right? I think you said at the beginning.
Yep, thumbs up.
Well, we'll keep thinking for the Florida team on ways that we can get you guys walking. For my team, during day-long meetings, we would have at least 3 walking meetings. So I would give them questions to break out. They had to go out on their own, talk about things, and then come back. And I think that just helped refresh them and got some great creative time. So it's sometimes what you propose to other people, but it sounds like your whole place might have a time management issue. Maybe Laura can go in and train everyone. So, I think that's great if we can leave some time for Patrick and then Laura. Patrick, you want to go ahead?
Is this thing on?
It is on. Okay, we can't see you though. Do you have
I got my own suspicions of these things. I keep duct tape on my camera.
Oh yeah, you'd have to pull that off.
But. Yeah, I don't want. Anyway, I'm looking at my notes. So I've read a lot of these sorts of books, like leadership, self-help, like time management, like sort of stuff. And so a lot of these concepts were not really that unfamiliar to me. And I think one of my notes was that when you read enough of these books, you're going to come across this stuff. What was it? Positive, number 5, positive evaluation. Number 4, win the battles. Number 2, don't overcommit, choose wisely. Like the most successful people are actually the ones that say no more than they say yes. And then the whole 8, prepare for the difficult situations and kind of accept. I think what's the serenity prayer, accept the things you can't change, sort of thing. So a lot of these concepts come up a lot, and I'm not unfamiliar with them. But for me, I always have to I have ADHD, so I have to filter this stuff through what works and what doesn't work for me. And so for me, number 3, number 3, this was an audiobook, so I listened to it. Number 3, I'm this is just not ever going to really work for me. That taking control of 5 minutes, that's great for people that are more neurotypical, but that's not a strategy that's going to work well for me. But I thought like how they start off the book with the doing them important things, not doing like everything, was really good, because there's this term called procrastinativity, which is like we do things that are seemingly important, and they're like semi-productive, but they're not actually like or like, no, we're doing like urgent things, but not important things or whatever. So it's like, oh, you know what? I really need to go grocery shopping, or I really need to like fix that light bulb, or whatever, these like little things that, yes, like they need to get done and they're errands, but they're great ways of making us feel accomplished when we're actually ignoring, you know what I really need to do? I need to sit down and write like 3 cover letters, or I really need to like get back to that person from like that networking event. But those things are uncomfortable and they're difficult. So let me bake a cake for my friend today or something. It's like, come on.
I get very wanting to eat when I'm staring at my to-do list sometimes. I'm like, I'm hungry, and I'm not hungry.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I liked the reframing of that, the doing the important things and not the urgent things. Is that correct? Right.
Yep.
Do the 3 most important things. I thought that was really helpful, because it allowed me to, in some senses, call me out on my own BS. Like I have these things I like running errands because it makes me feel accomplished, but so often those things are not actually really that important for what I need to do today. So I liked that. And I have, I think for numbers, I have 1, 5, 7, and 8. So those are the ones I really liked. The positive self-evaluation, the slow down, speak less, and like the preparing for the difficult situations. So I liked this book. I liked that throughout it, they were talking about, hey, here are 8 steps, choose one of them. And I love that they gave examples of like, dude, this person came to us, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I think there's an example of like, someone's like, I'm going to run a marathon and I'm going to like do more in my business. And then they're like, by the end of the year, the person was fatter than when they started. Like,
Well,
I love that, because it's like 1 step at a time, man. Like, this is a book with 8 steps. We only want you to choose one. So.
And then read it again next year and choose another one.
Exactly. Yeah. But, and on that though, it's like, I read this maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure how much of it I have implemented, and that is I need to implement it more. So, but yeah, that's what I have.
Awesome. Thanks, Patrick.
thanks, Patrick. I love that point. When I teach time management, I teach like 10 different ways to do it, and then we personalize it, because to Patrick's point, we're just all built differently. And I think we keep buying those, you know, the planner that's for somebody else. So I love that point, Patrick. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's also a good leadership technique too, is like, hey, what works? I want you to work best. Like, if my method is not working for you, like if someone reads this book and they're like, look, like I thought all this was garbage, but like I read whatever, like a Tony Robbins book, I don't know, that's just what's coming to head. And like, I got a lot of stuff out of that. Like, great. Like that, whatever works best for you to be effective to our team, that's what's most important.
That's great. Laura, it's going to be hard to beat that.
Well, I think everyone's kind of touched on the different aspects of the book. So I think all very good points, and definitely it's hard to say, you know, here, take my process. I think it's just good to hear examples of what other people do, because you can't think about how to do it yourself until someone tells you, like, this is an example. It doesn't mean it's going to work for you just because it works for someone else. Like Marissa's point, going up and down the stairs works great for you. I can tell you, working at APC, probably not going to work there. But, you know, but maybe it brings to mind, like, I can't do that, but I can do this other thing, you know? So it's never a bad idea to share, because, you know, something might spark another idea, which is why we're here. So
I think we need to buy them all some maybe massage therapy appointments for that free team. Like, let's just get them out of the office and get massages.
So my points for the book were, my favorite, I don't know if this is a quote, but it was just something I wrote down, was that it's critical to be able to learn how to execute in times of adversity. So another thing that happens to us is we have this great plan. This is what works for me today, but tomorrow crisis happens. And this for my career coaches, like, this works great until the holidays happen. This works great. And then how do you get back to it? You know, if you don't have a strategy, you don't have your to-do list in place, just like your health and diet plan. Like, Jody, you go to the gym every single day, but someday there's a crisis and you can't go. Like, I don't know when that happens, family, farm, something. There's going to be a day that you can't go. But does that mean you just stop altogether? If you don't have a plan, yeah, it probably does. But if you have some of these things worked into your system, then you're more likely to get back at it and keep going. So that was a key point to me. And the other thing was just that, you know, like you said about Coach Wooden and the sports examples, they get a little old to me, but at the same time, the point is that, and this happens all the time, questioning, you get this too. Well, have you ever worked in my industry before? No, and it doesn't matter, because you are the expert in your industry. I'm teaching you time management, productivity, strategy, which applies to everyone across the board. I don't care if you're coaching a team or if you are leading a farm, if you are building Teslas. Like, you have a goal and you need to fill that with productivity and accomplishments, and all of this stuff applies. So that's my other takeaway. What I didn't love was the continued use of channel capacity. I feel like it's a term they made up, and by the time I was halfway through the book, I kept forgetting what they actually meant by it. So it was a little overused. And, you know, I like to point out things I don't like and things I am critical. But
I'm a Pollyanna, so I appreciate
the other thing I really, really, really disliked, if I have to say, I think we're losing our.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm glad you made it. Lunchtime's over. I'm gonna wrap it up here real quick. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll see you next month.
Everybody.
Wrapping it up. Sorry. The thing I really didn't like was the inversion test. It seemed really weak, and they just threw it in at the end as like, if you didn't do this, what bad would happen? Like, there was no meat to that to me as far as like a reason for doing the things. There was enough reasons for doing the things that they didn't need to throw that in. That's all. But overall, definitely a thumbs up, because it had some helpful and actionable tidbits in there. So, all right, Lisa, wrap us up here.
Sure, I would agree on the inversion test. I think it confuses me sometimes. I think there is a specific science behind it, which I appreciate, but I almost don't need it.
Right.
I'm just going to trust in the book content. So with that, we are trying to end right on time, which I think we're going to do. And we just want to thank you all for showing up. I hope you enjoy the upcoming books. And again, our next one is in February. There's an event on Facebook that you can sign up for it. If you have any suggestions for us, please feel free to message us or get in touch with us how we can do this better. We want to, just like the book says, keep getting better at things and practice. And we just really appreciate all of you. From there, I don't know, Laura, anything else to add to that?
I think this was fun. I thought this was fun. Did you guys think this was fun? I guess that would be, let's just find out right now. If
yeah. I did.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, the next book is what got you here won't get you there.
It's
the one that I picked. So next month I'll tell you why I picked it, and we'll have the same similar discussion, and tell your friends it's not too late to join in still. And just really appreciate everybody joining us with this. It's a lot more fun with everybody than just Lisa and I bouncing this back and forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for the books.
Great. Thank you all. Enjoy your month. Feel free to post in Facebook if you have any other aha moments. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.